So that happened in our house. So I knew things were very seriously. I knew people were leaving. But then we went to Prague. As I said, we had a little holiday, my mother and I, and then I was leaving. And that day, the last day, my father took me to the zoo, to the Prague Zoo, and I remember that very clearly. There were elephants, big elephants, and giraffes, I think. And then Mother was in the hotel preparing the luggage, big luggage had already gone, but she was preparing food and backpack for the trip. And then we got into a taxi, and we were going to the station, and that's when it hit me. And I started to cry bitterly and beg them please not to send me, and please take me back home. And I remember promising that I would eat spinach, because I didn't like spinach, and I would eat spinach if they would take me home. And usually when I tell the children this at school, I always and they were comforting me, and I wanted to go back home, understandably. And my parents, of course, couldn't have wanted anything more than to take me home and be together. But my mother always, well, both of them really, they were very supportive of each other too. They said, we can't take you home because we want you. I knew about Hitler. I had heard him on the radio. I'd seen him in the movies, and I knew he was a very wicked person. And in fact, when they occupied, I'm going back and forth, I'm sorry, but when they occupied my country, which was in March, and I didn't leave till July, August, when they occupied, and there are pictures in there of how they occupied, and in the streets, the tanks and machine guns and soldiers. And so I knew he was cruel. And I remember saying, my mother was trying to tell me that I had to go to school. It was an ordinary day, but that we had a new president. And I said, what president? We don't need a new president. And I said, is it Hitler? And my mother always afterwards said that she was so surprised that I even knew his name. And I said that Hitler is wicked. He's going to arrest my daddy. And my mother said, why would he arrest your daddy if your daddy's a good man? He's never hurt anybody. He's never done anything wrong. And I said, no, but that's just what Hitler does. He kills and arrests people who have done nothing there just because he doesn't like them. So it all suddenly came back to me that night, going in the taxi to the station. Then they made us not even say goodbye. They took the children away into a different room, all of us, and they gave us labels around our necks. And we weren't allowed to look at our parents anymore. And they had said that mothers of children 6 and under were allowed to just go into the train and say goodbye one more time, but not mothers of older children. And my mother tore herself away from my father. They were holding hands and came up onto the train. And again, I was crying. I didn't want to even come to the window. And why do I have to go? And so as I said it, I didn't finish that sentence, sorry. As I said to say to the children at school, what do you think my mother said? How did she tell me? How did she comfort me when I really didn't want to go and was begging her to take me home? And her response was, we want you to go because we love you, because we want you to be safe. You yourself know how cruel Hitler is. He's being awful, he's killing people, and we knew that. And we want you to be able to go to school. You know, you can't, you've been stop from going into second grade. We want you to be able to learn. We want you to be safe, to play, and we will do whatever we can. We hope we will be able to follow you, and maybe we'll be together again. Whereas many of the children were going, parents had told them, oh, we promise to follow you. We promise to come and get you at the end of the summer holiday, a summer vacation. Well, that wasn't true. And my parents never promised and never even spoke about something that they knew they couldn't maintain. They promised to try very hard to follow me, but they knew there was no work anymore for adults in Britain. Even though they tried, they did take refugees. So we left, and I cried for the beginning of the trip a lot. But then I stopped, and I was in a carriage with two big boys, and they were supposed to take care of me. But they, and I just met one of them, I've seen him since, now a year ago in London when we had this reunion, and they had their father, they were a very religious family. He had a brother and there were two boys and parents, and the father had written to London to a rabbi. And I hate to tell this, but it's true. Saying that he had two boys, and would anybody in London be willing, or a family, to take the boys. And they got a letter back from the rabbi, and I think it's in there too somewhere, saying that we'll take your boys, but I would hate to get I don't know how many, lots of other letters from other families in your city asking all our Jewish community to take care of their children. It was a horrible letter. And when I saw him later, their two boys, their parents didn't survive, so they never saw their parents again. But when we got to London, these two and a few other children were not picked up even. So they spent the first nights with a taxi driver. He took them home. Then somebody else, a worker from the state. This is all in the film, Nicky's children or Nicky's family. So he talks there in that film quite a lot. His name is Hugo, yes, Hugo.